the day the Council witnessed humanity's predator trigger without warning. The peaceful facade, the Galactic Assembly had maintained perfect peace for 207 standard years. It was a record that every species celebrated, a testament to diplomacy, reason, and the careful management of conflicts before they could escalate into violence. The Assembly Station Nexus 7 floated serenely in neutral space, a massive structure built by 17 different species, each contributing their unique architectural and technological expertise. It was beautiful, functional, and most importantly, it represented hope. Dr. Sarah Chen walked through the botanical gardens on level 42, her favorite place on the entire station. She had helped design this section 12 years ago when humanity first joined the Galactic Assembly. The gardens contained plants from 43 different worlds, each carefully maintained in their own environmental pods. Sarah had added Earth specimens too, including her beloved cherry trees that now bloomed in soft pink clouds. Somehow more beautiful here among the alien flora than they had ever been back home. Sarah was a cultural liaison, one of 15 humans permanently stationed on Nexus 7. Her official role was to help other species understand human customs, biology, and thought processes. Unofficially, she spent most of her time making friends, sharing meals with beings who breathe different atmospheres, and learning everything she could about the incredible diversity of intelligent life in the galaxy. She loved her job. She loved the Assembly. She believed deeply in what it represented. The Quelrians had been her first real friends among the alien species. Ambassador Thelver, in particular, had taken an immediate liking to Sarah. The Quelrians were insectoid beings, roughly human-sized, with compound eyes that shimmered in rainbow colors and forearms that moved with elegant precision. Thelver had explained once that humans reminded Quelrians of their own ancestral caretaker species, creatures that had helped the Quelrians evolve from simple hive insects into fully sentient individuals capable of complex thought and emotion. Sarah found Thelver in the gardens that morning, as she often did. The Quelrian was examining a flowering succulent from his homeworld, his antennae twitching with contentment. When he noticed Sarah, his mandibles clicked in what she had learned was a greeting smile. "Dr. Chen, good morning by your human reckoning," Thelver said in his melodious voice. The translator implant in Sarah's ear converted his native language seamlessly. "I was hoping to find you here. There is a matter I wish to discuss, though I am uncertain if it is worth troubling you." Sarah sat on a nearby bench made of living wood, a gift from the Silver and Tree Dwellers. "You know, you can always talk to me, Thelver. What's on your mind?" The Quelrian's antennae drooped slightly, a sign of concern. "It is about the Varaxians. They have been increasingly aggressive in their territorial claims along the outer reach sectors. 3 minor species have filed formal complaints in the past month alone. The Assembly's mediation attempts have been, shall we say, unsuccessful." Sarah frowned. She knew about the Varaxians, of course. Everyone did. They were a large reptilian species, heavily muscled and naturally aggressive. They had joined the Assembly 40 years ago, and their membership had always been contentious. The Varaxians believed in strength above all else, in taking what you could hold, in showing dominance through force. The Assembly had spent decades trying to channel that aggression into productive pursuits, with limited success. "The Assembly will handle it," Sarah said, with more confidence than she felt. "That's what the diplomatic corps is for. Mediation, sanctions if necessary, peacekeeping forces as a last resort. The system works, Thelver. It's worked for 2 centuries. Thelver's mandibles clicked uncertainly. Yes, of course. You are right, Dr. Chen. I worry too much. It is a flaw of my species. We remember too well when we were prey creatures, before we learned to think and build." He brightened visibly. "Come, I wanted to show you something. We received seeds from a newly contacted world, and I believe they may be compatible with Earth biology. Perhaps we can create a hybrid garden." Sarah smiled and followed her friend deeper into the gardens. The conversation about the Varaxians faded from her mind like morning mist. After all, the Assembly had procedures for everything. Rules and protocols developed over thousands of years by dozens of species. Nothing truly bad could happen here. She was wrong. The attack came 3 days later, without warning, without provocation, and without mercy. The Varaxian Dominion, led by War Chief Draxel, launched a coordinated assault on 7 human agricultural colonies along the frontier. These were not military installations. They were farms, research stations, and small family settlements. The newest colony, Greenfield 3, had been established just 18 months ago. It was home to 4,216 humans, most of them civilians, many of them children. The Varaxians struck at dawn local time. Orbital bombardment came first, targeting the colony's small defense satellite and communication arrays. Then came the landing craft, disgorging hundreds of Varaxian shock troops into the settlement. What happened next would be recorded in perfect detail by automated cameras, by personal devices, by the very technology humans had installed to document their new lives among the stars. War Chief Draxel wanted to send a message. He wanted to show the soft species of the assembly what real strength looked like. He wanted to remind everyone that the Varaxians were not bound by weakness, disguised as civility. So he did not simply conquer Greenfield 3. He made an example of it. Sarah was in a cultural exchange meeting. When the emergency alert sounded throughout Nexus 7, the sound was something she had only heard in drills. A rising and falling wail that meant immediate crisis. The holographic display in the conference room flickered and changed, showing the assembly's emergency broadcast system activating. High Arbiter Zexthon appeared in the projection. The Morphelian was a being of living crystal, roughly humanoid in shape, but composed of thousands of faceted geometric patterns that refracted light in mesmerizing ways. Zexon had led the assembly for 30 years, and Sarah had never seen the Arbiter look anything other than calm and controlled until now. All assembly members are advised that a Level 1 crisis is underway, Zexthon said, and Sarah could hear something in the crystalline voice that she had never heard before. Fear. Multiple human colonies have been attacked by Varaxian forces. Casualties are reported as severe. The Assembly Council is convening an emergency session immediately. All species representatives are required to attend. The transmission ended. For a moment, the conference room was absolutely silent. The various aliens present looked at each other, then at Sarah. She stood slowly, feeling something cold spreading through her chest. Her hands were steady. Her breathing was controlled. But inside, something was changing, something fundamental and terrifying. "Excuse me," Sarah said quietly. Her voice sounded normal, professional, exactly as it always did. "I need to contact my people." She walked out of the conference room with measured steps. No running. No panic. She walked to the human embassy section of the station, past other species who were gathering in confused clusters, discussing the news in hushed tones. None of them tried to stop her. Perhaps they saw something in her face that made them step aside. The human embassy was chaos. 12 of the 15 permanent staff were already there, all of them moving with sudden purpose. Communication screens showed fragmentary reports from Greenfield 3 and the other attacked colonies. The images were bad, very bad. Sarah saw fire and smoke and bodies and forced herself to look at every detail. To understand exactly what had happened, Ambassador James Cortez, the senior human representative, stood at the Central Command Console. He was a veteran diplomat who had served humanity for 40 years, first on Earth and then among the stars. Sarah had always admired his calm demeanor, his endless patience, his genuine belief in peaceful resolution. That man was gone now. The person at the console wore Ambassador Cortez's face, but something else looked out through his eyes. "Sarah," Cortez said when he noticed her. His voice was flat and emotionless. "Good, I need you to compile everything we have on Vracian military installations, leadership structures, and supply chains. Everything. Prioritize accuracy over speed." Sarah blinked. "Sir, shouldn't we be preparing diplomatic responses? The Assembly will need our input for sanctions, peacekeeping deployment." "Mediation with the Varaxian government? No," Cortez interrupted. The single word cut through the room like a blade. "That time is over. Get me the targeting data, Dr. Chen. That's an order." Sarah felt her hands begin to move before her conscious mind caught up. She sat at a terminal and began pulling files, organizing information, compiling lists. Around her, the other humans worked with the same sudden intensity. No one spoke unnecessarily. No one argued or debated. They had transformed from diplomats and cultural liaisons into something else. Something that had been waiting patiently beneath the surface for 12 years. Something old. Something dangerous. Something that Earth had forged over millions of years of evolution. The emergency assembly session began 2 hours later. Sarah watched from the human embassy along with the rest of the permanent staff. The assembly chamber was packed with representatives from over 100 species. The mood was tense, confused, and frightened. This kind of overt military aggression had not happened in living memory for most species. The assembly's carefully maintained peace had been shattered, and no one knew quite what to do about it. High Arbiter Zexton called the session to order. The crystalline being's facets were dark, showing emotional distress. We have confirmed reports from 7 human colonies. The attacks were coordinated and deliberate. Casualties are estimated at over 15,000 humans dead or missing. The Varaxian Dominion has claimed responsibility and states that these actions were necessary to assert their territorial claims and demonstrate their strength. A wave of shocked voices filled the chamber. Several species began speaking at once, their translator feeds overlapping into chaos. Zexon raised crystalline hands for silence. The Assembly Council will now hear proposed responses to this crisis. I open the floor for discussion. What followed was exactly what Sarah expected, and exactly what made her feel sick to her stomach. Species after species stood and proposed measured responses. Economic sanctions, diplomatic censure, mediation attempts, peacekeeping forces to prevent further escalation, investigation committees to determine the exact sequence of events, appeals to reason and law and the shared principles of civilized behavior. No one proposed what should have been obvious. No one suggested that the Varaxians needed to be stopped immediately and permanently. No one understood that this was not a diplomatic incident to be managed. This was murder on a massive scale. It demanded a response that matched its severity. Ambassador Thelver spoke, his voice trembling with emotion. The Quelrians propose immediate economic isolation of the Varaxian Dominion. We will cease all trade, close our borders to their vessels, and encourage other species to do the same. Economic pressure has resolved conflicts before. Given time, it will work again. Given time. Sarah closed her eyes. Greenfield 3 had not been given time. The children playing in the settlement school had not been given time. The farmers tending their crops had not been given time. They had been given death from the sky, and Varaxian shock troops who showed no mercy. The debate continued for 3 hours. It was civilized. It was reasonable. It was everything the Galactic Assembly represented. And it was completely, utterly inadequate. Finally, Zexton turned to the human section. We have not yet heard from the human delegation. Ambassador Cortez, what is humanity's position on appropriate responses to this crisis? Ambassador Cortez stood. In the embassy, Sarah watched him walk to the central podium with calm, measured steps. When he spoke, his voice was steady and professional, exactly as it had always been during his decades of diplomatic service. The Galactic Assembly has been humanity's home for 12 years, Cortez began. We have learned from you. We have grown alongside you. We have contributed what we could to the peace and prosperity that this assembly represents. We believe deeply in the principles of diplomacy, mediation, and peaceful resolution of conflicts. He paused. Every being in the assembly chamber was listening with complete attention. We believed, Cortez continued, that we had left something behind when we joined you among the stars. Something old and violent from our primitive past. Something we were ashamed of and hoped never to show you. Sarah felt her heart beating faster. Around her, the other humans in the embassy sat perfectly still. Watching their ambassadors speak words they all felt but had not yet said aloud. The Varaxians have just reminded us what we really are, Cortez said. His voice remained calm, but something terrible was growing beneath the words. They have reminded us that humans did not evolve in a galaxy of reasonable beings who respected rules, and engaged in civilized debate. We evolved on a planet that tried to kill us every single day for 4 million years. We evolved as hunters, as trackers, as persistent predators who never stopped chasing prey until it fell from exhaustion. The assembly chamber was absolutely silent now. Beings from dozens of worlds stared at the human ambassador with growing uncertainty. Earth is classified as a Class 9 deathworld by your own xenobiology standards, Cortez said. That classification exists because 99% of species exposed to Earth's environment would die within hours. We did not simply survive on that world. We thrived. We became the apex predator of a planet filled with creatures larger, stronger, and more naturally armed than we were. Do you know how we did that? No one answered. No one moved. We learned to think, Cortez said. We learned to plan. We learned to work together in groups that could coordinate complex strategies. We learned to track prey across vast distances, following trails that other predators could not see. We learned to throw projectiles with lethal accuracy, to craft weapons, to use tools as extensions of our bodies. And most importantly, we learned to never, ever give up. We looked around the assembly chamber, meeting the eyes and visual organs of dozens of different species. The Varaxians killed 15,000 of our people. They killed our children. They burned our homes. They did this to demonstrate their strength and assert their dominance. They believed we were soft because we smile and laugh and preferred diplomacy to violence. Cortez smiled. It was not a pleasant expression. It was the kind of smile that showed teeth. They were wrong, he said simply. Humanity is invoking Article 12 of our membership charter. We are exercising our right to self-defense and military autonomy. The Varaxian Dominion will be held accountable for their actions. This is not a threat. This is not a negotiating position. This is a statement of fact. High Arbiter Zexan's crystal body flickered with confusion. Ambassador Cortez, please clarify what you mean by held accountable. The Assembly has procedures. Your procedures failed to protect our people, Cortez interrupted. The breach of protocol was shocking, but no one objected. Your 200 years of peace existed because no truly aggressive species had been willing to test your boundaries. The Varaxians just tested them. They found them inadequate. Humanity will now demonstrate what appropriate boundaries look like. You're talking about war, said a small, furry delegate from the Softling species. Scholar Pimri was known for detailed historical research and gentle wisdom. War has not touched the Assembly in 2 centuries. Surely there must be another way. Cortez looked at the small scholar with something almost like pity. There is always another way, Scholar Pimri. But the other ways require both parties to be reasonable. They require shared respect for life and law. The Varaxians have demonstrated that they possess neither. Therefore, humanity will teach them a lesson they should have learned long ago. What lesson? Zexan asked quietly. That some species choose peace, Cortez said. And some species are simply incapable of effective violence. Humanity is not the latter. We chose peace. We chose diplomacy. We chose to be your friends and partners among the stars. But that choice can be revoked, and the Varaxians just revoked it. He turned and walked away from the podium. The feed from the assembly chamber cut off. In the human embassy, Sarah felt tears running down her face, though she could not have said whether they were tears of grief or something else entirely. Around her, the other humans began to move again. Files were transferred. Communications were sent. Protocols were activated that had been prepared years ago, just in case. By people who understood that hope for the best required preparing for the worst, the transformation was complete. The friendly humans who had lived peacefully among the stars for 12 years were gone. What remained were the descendants of Earth, the survivors of a death world. The apex predators who had conquered a planet through persistence and intelligence and an absolute refusal to accept defeat. The galaxy was about to learn what that really meant. And the Varaxians were about to pay the price for the lesson in human space. Far from the peaceful corridors of Nexus 7, military bases that had been on standby for over a decade suddenly came to full operational status. Ships that had been designed and built but never used began powering up their drives. Soldiers who had trained for a war they hoped would never come received deployment orders. The entire human military infrastructure, hidden carefully from casual observation but always present, always ready, began to move. Commander Marcus Webb received his orders while he was having dinner with his wife and 2 daughters. He was commanding officer of the human vessel Retribution, one of 47 heavy cruisers that officially existed for defensive purposes only. He had been in command for 6 years. He had never fired his weapons in combat. He had hoped he never would. That hope died when he read the deployment orders on his personal communicator. His wife saw his face change and immediately understood. She had been a military officer herself before retiring to raise their daughters. She knew what that expression meant. "How long?" she asked quietly, reaching across the table to take his hand.
"I'll leave it for ours,"
Marcus said. "Primary target list is being transmitted now. The entire fleet is mobilizing." Their daughters, aged 9 and 12, looked between their parents with growing understanding. The older girl, Emma, had inherited her father's analytical mind. "It's because of Greenfield 3, isn't it? Because of what the Varaxians did?" Marcus looked at his daughter and decided she deserved the truth. "Yes. And because the galaxy needs to understand that attacking humans comes with consequences. Will you kill them all?" his younger daughter asked. The question was simple, direct, innocent, in the way only children could be innocent. Marcus thought about that carefully. "I will follow my orders. Those orders are to eliminate the Varaxian military as an effective fighting force. That means destroying their ships, their bases, and their command structure. Varaxian civilians will not be targeted, but their military will cease to exist." His wife squeezed his hand. "Come back to us," always Marcus promised. It was a promise he had made 100 times during his career. This time, he was not entirely certain he could keep it. 4 hours later, the Retribution and her battle group departed from their hidden base near Jupiter's orbit. 43 human warships, carrying enough firepower to sterilize a continent, slipped into faster-than-light transit and vanished from human space. They were heading toward Varaxian territory, toward targets that human intelligence had been carefully cataloging for years, just in case this day ever came. Across human space, similar scenes played out. Battle groups assembled. Orders were transmitted. Families said goodbye. The transformation that had begun in the diplomats and cultural liaisons on Nexus 7 was now spreading through humanity's entire military force. The peaceful facade was falling away, revealing what had always been underneath, and in the depths of space. The Varaxian Dominion celebrated their victory over the weak humans. War Chief Draxel stood before his commanders and declared that this was only the beginning. The humans had proven themselves to be easy prey. Their colonies would be conquered, their resources claimed, their people enslaved or destroyed. The assembly would protest and debate, while the Varaxians grew stronger. It was a reasonable assessment based on 2 centuries of assembly history. No species had responded to aggression with overwhelming force and living memory. Conflicts were managed, mediated, resolved through patient diplomacy. That was how civilized beings behaved. The Varaxians had forgotten a crucial fact. Humans were not civilized because they were incapable of violence. They were civilized despite being exceptionally good at it. That distinction was about to become very, very clear. The Unleashing Commander, Marcus Webb, stood on the bridge of the Retribution and watched the tactical display update with target data. His ship, and the other 42 vessels in battle group. Alpha had just dropped out of faster-than-light transit at the edge of the Vrax Prime system. They were approximately 2 light hours from the Varaxian homeworld. Far enough to avoid immediate detection, but close enough to strike with devastating speed. Lieutenant Commander Sarah Park sat at the tactical station, her fingers dancing across holographic controls. She was younger than Marcus by 15 years, but he had specifically requested her for his crew after seeing her demolish every combat simulation the training academy could throw at her. What he had not known until recently was that Sarah had lost a cousin on Greenfield 3. She had not mentioned it. She had simply reported for duty with the same professional efficiency she always displayed. Marcus understood that silence. He understood the cold thing that happened inside when someone hurt your family. It was a fundamental human response, written into their DNA by millions of years of evolution. You protected your pack. You avenged your dead. You made sure the threat could never hurt anyone ever again, status report Marcus said quietly. His voice carried clearly across the bridge despite its soft tone. The crew of the Retribution had trained together for 6 years. They knew their commander, trusted him, and would follow him into hell itself if he gave the order. All ships have successfully transitioned to normal space, Sarah reported. Drives are cooling down on schedule. Weapon systems are charging. Stealth protocols are active. We are currently undetected by Varaxian sensor networks. Enemy force disposition. Varax Prime System contains the Varaxian Dominion's primary military command center, the largest shipyard, and approximately 200 active warships of various classes. Planetary defenses include orbital weapon platforms, shield generators, and ground-based anti-ship batteries. Total estimated military personnel exceed 1 million individuals. Marcus absorbed the numbers without reaction. The Varaxians had built an impressive defensive network around their homeworld. Under normal circumstances, any attacking force would need overwhelming numerical superiority to have a chance of success. These were not normal circumstances. Intel assessment confirms that War Chief Draxel is currently on planet at the primary command center. Sarah continued. Her voice remained professionally neutral, but Marcus heard the slight edge underneath. He's scheduled to address the Dominion's War Council in approximately 3 hours. He won't make that meeting, Marcus said simply. All ships, execute approach vector Delta 7. Silent running protocols. I want us in strike range before they know we're here. The battle group began moving deeper into the Varax Prime system. Human stealth technology had been developed carefully over the past 12 years, refined through observation of how other species detected ships in space. The Retribution and her companions did not try to hide their mass or their thermal signatures. Instead, they created false signatures that made them appear to be commercial vessels, mining operations, or natural cosmic phenomena. 2 Varaxian sensors, if they detected anything at all. The approaching human fleet looked like background noise. They closed to strike range without being challenged. Marcus stood at the center of his bridge and felt the cold thing inside him settle into perfect clarity. This was what humans had evolved to do. This was what they were good at before civilization and agriculture and technology. Humans had been hunters who could track prey across continents. They had been pack predators who coordinated complex attacks. They had been persistence killers who never gave up, who kept coming long after other predators had abandoned the chase. The Varaxians were about to learn what it meant to be prey. All ships report ready to engage, Sarah announced. Weapons locked on priority targets. Firing solutions confirmed. We have perfect positioning, sir. Marcus took a deep breath. What happened next would change humanity's relationship with every species in the galaxy. The friendly explorers would be gone, replaced by something that terrified and fascinated in equal measure. There was no going back from this moment, but 15,000 humans were dead. 4,000 of them had died on Greenfield 3, while the Galactic Assembly debated appropriate responses. And the Varaxians thought they could get away with it because humans smiled and preferred diplomacy. That assumption ended now. All ships, Marcus said calmly. Weapons free. Execute Operation Reckoning. Show them what we are. The Retribution fired first. Her main railgun, a weapon capable of accelerating projectiles to 30% of light speed, sent a tungsten penetrator screaming toward the Varaxian orbital shipyard. The projectile covered the distance in seconds, moving too fast for point defense systems to track. When it hit, it released energy equivalent to a 20-megaton nuclear warhead. The shipyard, a massive structure that had been building Varaxian warships for 70 years, ceased to exist. One moment it was there, a sprawling complex of construction bays and docking facilities. The next moment, it was an expanding cloud of superheated gas and debris. 300 Varaxian workers and technicians died, without ever knowing they were under attack. Before the light from that explosion had finished propagating through the system, 42 other human ships opened fire simultaneously. They targeted orbital weapon platforms, shield generators, docked warships, and ground-based command centers with clinical precision. The coordination was perfect, the timing was exact, and the results were devastating. Human weapons philosophy differed fundamentally from most species in the galaxy. Where other races built weapons for specific tactical purposes, carefully balancing factors like range, accuracy, and energy efficiency, humans built weapons to kill things as efficiently as possible. They did not care about elegance or efficiency. They cared about overwhelming destructive power backed by redundant systems and multiple backup plans. The Retribution carried railguns, missile pods, laser arrays, particle beams, nuclear torpedoes, and several experimental weapons that had never been fired outside of test ranges. Every human ship in the battle group was similarly armed. When they fired, they did so with the accumulated knowledge of a species that had spent 10,000 years perfecting the art of killing. Vraxian orbital defenses tried to respond. Automated systems activated. Defense platforms began tracking targets. Countermissiles launched. It was an impressive display of military readiness and preparation. It was also completely inadequate. Human point defense systems used technology that made most species uncomfortable. They employed artificial intelligence that could think and react faster than any biological being. They used predictive algorithms that anticipated enemy actions before they happened. They coordinated across entire battle groups, sharing data instantaneously through quantum-encrypted communication networks. When Vraxian missiles approached, they flew into a storm of laser fire and interceptor drones. When Vraxian beam weapons locked on, human ships deployed electronic warfare countermeasures that made accurate targeting impossible. When Vraxian forces tried to coordinate their response, they found their communication networks compromised by human cyber warfare specialists who had infiltrated their systems months ago, just waiting for this moment. The battle for orbital supremacy lasted 17 minutes. When it ended, every Vraxian military installation in orbit around their homeworld had been destroyed. 200 warships had been reduced to wreckage. The planetary defense grid had been dismantled piece by piece, and the human fleet had suffered exactly 0 casualties. On the bridge of the Retribution, Xera Park reported the results with professional calm. All orbital targets neutralized. Planetary shields are down. Ground targets are exposed. Awaiting further orders, sir? Marcus pulled up a tactical overlay showing the Vraxian homeworld. The primary military command center was clearly marked, a hardened bunker complex built deep beneath the planet's surface. It was designed to survive orbital bombardment, to protect the Dominion's leadership even if everything else fell. War Chief Draxel was in that bunker right now, probably trying to understand how his impregnable defenses had been shattered. So quickly, Marcus could destroy that bunker from orbit. The Retribution carried weapons that could crack continents, but that was not what he intended to do. Killing Draxel from space was too impersonal. It did not send the right message. The Vraxians needed to understand that humans could reach them anywhere, that no bunker was deep enough, no fortress strong enough to protect them from what was coming. Deploy the Marines, Marcus ordered. Target is the primary command center. Rules of engagement are weapons-free for military personnel. Civilians are to be avoided unless they present a direct threat. I want War Chief Draxel alive if possible. He needs to see what happens next. Lieutenant Kira Santos received the deployment order aboard the assault ship, Fury. She was a tall woman with scars on her face from a training accident 10 years ago. Scars she had chosen not to have cosmetically removed. She commanded 200 Marines in the first wave, with 300 more in reserve. They were the elite of human ground forces, trained for operations in hostile environments, augmented with technology that made them faster and stronger than baseline humans. And absolutely committed to their mission, Kira had been awake for 36 hours straight since the orders came through. She had not slept because every time she closed her eyes, she saw footage from Greenfield 3. She saw Vraxian shock troops executing civilians. She saw children running from plasma fire. She saw everything that had been done to helpless people who could not fight back. Those images fueled something dark and terrible inside her. Kira Santos had joined the military because she believed in protecting people. She had trained for combat, hoping she would never need those skills. But now that the time had come, she found that all those years of training had created something efficient and lethal. She was a weapon pointed at the enemy. She would not stop until every single Varaxian soldier understood the cost of what they had done. Marines, this is Commander Santos, she said over the company-wide channel. Our mission is simple. We're going into that bunker, and we're removing every hostile we find. They killed our people. They thought we were weak. Show them what human Marines can do. The drop pods launched from the Fury in a carefully timed sequence. Each pod was a marvel of human engineering, capable of surviving atmospheric re-entry at speeds that would vaporize most materials. Inside, Marines sat in shock-absorbing harnesses. Their armor sealed, their weapons ready. Their minds focused on the mission ahead. The pods hit the Varaxian atmosphere at 40,000 kilometers per hour. Friction turned their heat shields white-hot. The pods screamed down through the sky like falling stars, visible across half the planet. Varaxian civilians looked up in terror. Varaxian military forces scrambled to respond. And deep in his hardened bunker, where Chief Draxel received reports that the humans were coming for him personally. Kira's pod impacted half-kilometer from the bunker entrance. The crash was violent enough to crack concrete, but her armor absorbed the shock without difficulty. She triggered the pod's explosive bolts. The sides blew outward. She stepped onto Varaxian soil for the first time. The planet's gravity was slightly higher than Earth's standard. The atmosphere was thinner and smelled of sulfur. The sky was a deep purple color that would have been beautiful under other circumstances. Kira noticed all of these details in a fraction of a second, cataloged them, and dismissed them as irrelevant. She had a target. Everything else was noise. Her Marines formed up around her with practiced efficiency. 200 humans in powered armor, carrying weapons that had been designed specifically for close-quarters combat against hostile forces. They moved toward the bunker entrance like a coordinated organism, covering angles, checking for threats, advancing with the kind of tactical precision that came from years of training. The Varaxians tried to stop them. Automated defense turrets emerged from hidden positions and opened fire. Varaxian soldiers poured out of the bunker entrance, their plasma rifles spitting blue-green fire. It was a respectable defense by any reasonable standard. It was not nearly enough. Human-powered armor could withstand direct hits from Varaxian plasma weapons. The energy dissipated across reactive surfaces that had been designed to handle nuclear radiation. When Varaxian soldiers aimed for weak points in the armor, they found that humans moved faster than they expected, dodged with reflexes augmented by computer assistance, and returned fire with devastating accuracy. The Marines advanced through the Varaxian defense like a knife through tissue. Their weapons were brutal in their efficiency. Gauss rifles fired hypervelocity rounds that could punch through cover. Plasma lances cut through Varaxian armor. Shaped charges cleared rooms. And when they got close enough, humans used their physical strength, augmented by powered armor, to simply tear through obstacles. Kira led from the front, her rifle spitting fire. Her tactical display showing the positions of all her Marines in real time. She moved through the battlefield with fluid grace, decades of training making every action automatic. She did not think about shooting, about moving, about communicating with her team. She simply did it, allowing her body and her technology to work in perfect harmony. The bunker's outer defenses fell in 12 minutes. The Marines breached the main entrance and poured into the corridors beyond. The Varaxians fought with desperate courage, trying to hold every choke point, every junction, every room. They died in place, refusing to retreat, believing that their strength and determination would be enough. They were wrong. Humans had evolved to hunt creatures larger and stronger than themselves. They had learned 10,000 different ways to kill things that should have been able to kill them. Strength was not enough. Size was not enough. Courage was not enough. Against humans who had decided to hunt, nothing was ever enough. Kira's Marines cleared the bunker, level by level, room by room. They moved with relentless efficiency, checking corners, clearing dead ends, securing their advance. The Varaxians tried everything. They collapsed corridors. They deployed chemical weapons that should have been lethal. They sent their largest warriors in desperate last stands. Nothing worked. Human armor was sealed against chemical attacks. Collapsed corridors were cleared with explosives or bypassed through alternative routes. Large warriors died just as easily as small ones when hit by hypersonic projectiles or plasma lances. And the Marines never stopped, never slowed, never gave the Vraxians time to reorganize or mount an effective defense. 43 minutes after the first pod landed, Kira and her Marines breached the command center itself. War Chief Draxel stood at the center of the room, surrounded by his personal guard. He was a massive Vraxian, nearly 3 meters tall. His scales covered in ceremonial scars that demonstrated his prowess in combat. He held a plasma blade in each of his forearms and roared defiance at the humans who had invaded his sanctum. His guards charged. 12 elite Vraxian warriors, the best fighters the Dominion could produce, threw themselves at the human Marines. It should have been an impressive final stand, the kind of last battle that would be remembered in songs and stories. It lasted 8 seconds. The Vraxian guards died in a coordinated volley of gunfire so precise that not a single human Marine was even scratched. They fell like puppets with cut strings, their bodies torn apart by hypersonic rounds. Their final charge ending in blood and smoke and the acrid smell of burnt flesh. War Chief Draxel stood alone, his plasma blades glowing, his eyes wide with something that might have been disbelief. He had conquered 17 worlds during his rise to power. He had killed hundreds of enemies in personal combat. He was the most feared warrior in the Vraxian Dominion, and he faced these humans with the expectation that he would at least die with honor. Kira walked toward him slowly, her rifle pointed at his chest. The other Marines held their positions, covering her ready to fire if the war chief made any threatening moves. But Kira wanted this moment. She wanted Draxel to see her face, to understand who and what had come for him. She unsealed her helmet and pulled it off. Her scarred face was visible now, her human features clear. She looked into the Vraxian's reptilian eyes and spoke in his language, translated by the computer in her armor. "You attacked our colonies," Kira said quietly. "You killed our civilians. You murdered our children. You did this to demonstrate your strength, to show the galaxy that the Vraxians were not bound by weak laws and civilized behavior." Draxel said nothing. His plasma blades trembled slightly in his hands. "We are humans," Kira continued. "We evolved on a deathworld. We survived when everything else died. We learned to hunt prey that was bigger, faster, and stronger than we were. We learned to never give up, never stop, never show mercy to things that threatened our families." She raised her rifle slightly, aiming directly between his eyes. "You wanted to show strength," Kira said. "Let me show you what real strength looks like." She fired. The hypervelocity round took Draxel in the knee, a deliberately non-lethal shot that shattered bone and dropped him to the floor. He roared in pain and rage, trying to rise, his plasma blades flaring. Kira's Marines fired in perfect coordination, shooting the weapons from his hands without killing him. "Will live," Kira said, standing over the fallen war chief. "You will survive to face trial for your crimes. You will watch as we dismantle everything you built, and you will understand that the Vraxians are not the strongest species in this galaxy. You never were. You were just the most recent species to make the mistake of attacking humans." Outside the bunker, the rest of the human battle group had moved to engage Vraxian military forces across their entire territory. Battle groups Beta through Echo struck simultaneously at 17 different systems, targeting shipyards, military bases, training facilities, and command centers. They moved with the same overwhelming force that had shattered Vrax Prime's defenses, destroying everything of military value while carefully avoiding civilian casualties. The Vraxian Dominion tried to mount a coordinated defense. They sent fleets to intercept human forces. They activated reserve units. They called upon ancient defense treaties with allied species. Nothing helped. Human intelligence had mapped every military asset the Vraxians possessed. Human strategy had planned for every possible response. Human weapons were simply superior in every measurable way. The campaign lasted 19 days. When it ended, the The Varaxian Dominion's military capabilities had been reduced to essentially zero. They had no functional shipyards. They had no organized fleet. They had no command structure. War Chief Draxel and his senior commanders were in human custody, awaiting trial for war crimes. The Varaxian people still existed, their civilian population largely untouched, but their ability to threaten anyone had been completely eliminated. On the 19th day, Commander Marcus Webb broadcast a message to every planet in Varaxian territory. His face appeared on communication screens throughout their space, calm and professional, showing no emotion. The Varaxian Dominion attacked human colonies without provocation or warning, Marcus said. 15,000 humans died. The Varaxian military has now been held accountable for those deaths. Your shipyards are destroyed. Your fleets are gone. Your command structure has been dismantled. This is what happens when you attack humanity. Paused, letting that sink in. The Varaxian people are not our enemies. You are not being conquered or enslaved. Your civilian government can continue to function, but you will never again possess the military capability to threaten anyone. Any attempt to rebuild military forces will be met with immediate and overwhelming response. You are being allowed to survive because humans are not monsters, but you will never be allowed to threaten anyone ever again. The broadcast ended. Across Varaxian space, millions of beings watched the human commander disappear from their screens and understood that their world had fundamentally changed. The Varaxian Dominion, which had existed for 300 years, which had conquered dozens of worlds, which had been feared throughout their region of space, had been completely and permanently neutered in less than 3 weeks, and humanity had lost a total of 43 personnel during the entire campaign. 43 humans dead, most of them in accidents rather than combat, against the complete destruction of the Varaxian military machine. The news reached the Galactic Assembly within hours. Representatives from over 100 species watched the recordings of human military operations with growing horror and fascination. They saw the efficiency, the coordination, the overwhelming force applied with surgical precision. They saw something that none of them had believed possible. They saw what happened when you pushed humans too far, and they understood that everything they thought they knew about this species had been wrong.